Hey guys, for Arrow, Season 5, Episode 5, Human Target, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. This season, I think, has been on a roll so far, and especially with last week's episode, just the way things ended up, with the Diggle storyline, now not concluded, but now part of the main storyline. I was looking forward to seeing really where that was going to go, Church being more to the forefront, and this episode for me, I know I said last episode was great. This was right up there with last week's episode. I really love this episode overall. Just some really great stuff going on here. I think we had a really interesting story here. I think this is really the episode that really started to get things moving. There were parts of this episode that honestly felt like a mid-season finale. It really did. But let's just get into this episode because I'm loving where the season is headed. And I really do like that the season, so far at least, isn't really that unpractical. Arrow likes to do that a lot where they like to get very big and stuff like that, but this season seems very practical and I really do like that. But let's just get into this episode because there definitely is a lot to talk about. So we start off right off the bat with some really not brutal, but just kind of hard to watch stuff. We see Church, he's torturing Wild Dog, and I forgot to say, Shadow Coleman is absolutely killing it as this character. It's great to see him back on TV. You guys remember how much I love Tyrese as a character on The Walking Dead. He still is one of my favorite characters on that show. I really do miss his presence, but it's great that he is continuing to do great stuff as Church, because he really is great as his character. Wild Dog promises that he's not going to crack, and I have to say, I've given Wild Dog shit in the past few episodes. This is the episode where I'm really starting to like him as a character. I think if they continue to do what they're doing with the team that they did in this episode, they're really going to get us to like the team more, because again, these are characters that we don't really know, so by spending more time with them, I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, these are going to be our new team members, and Wild Dog promises that there's nothing he's going to do to make him crack, but Church says that it's not the pain that will break Wild Dog, it's the fear of what's going to come next, because Wild Dog doesn't really know what he's in for, he doesn't really know what Church is going to do to him, and the way that Church is mentally torturing him in this episode is overall very interesting. I like that it was a lot of mental torture, and not, complete physical torture. I like that overall. So meanwhile, Oliver and his team are searching the streets for a way to find Church, and after getting a vague lead, they return to the Arrow Cave, and Oliver introduced the team to Diggle. Now, I thought that Diggle was going to be, away from the team and deal what he's dealing with, but no, he's kind of more like a counselor, if you will, for the team in many ways, and the reason I'm joking about that is because that's basically what Diggle is now. He's there to be kind of like, not the voice of reason, but he's there to get them back on the right track, and I like that. Diggle is someone who's gone through a lot of hardships, and the scenes between him and Wild Dog when they eventually meet up each other is some of the best stuff in this episode, and I really did love seeing Diggle back here, and I like that even though Diggle, he's not technically a part of Team Arrow, he is still a part of it. I like that overall. He just can't really, do any fighting or anything, so I like that. But, back at City Hall, so right off the bat, I think we were definitely right off the bat off to a great episode. But back now, depleted anti-crime units, which obviously is now in danger because we know that there's someone going after them, Church is going after them, and while Thea reminds Oliver that he needs to work on getting a 4/5 majority for a zoning proposal that they need to get through. And I like this. I like seeing Oliver doing stuff as the mayor. That's one of the problems I have with last season, that while we saw him as the mayor, it wasn't really talked about as much. It was very glanced over, like, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I like this season we're actually seeing that stuff happening. The show's remembering that Oliver is the main character. We want to see all the, the goings-on of Oliver. That's what we want to see. So in a flashback, Anatoly and the other leaders of the Brodva induct Oliver into the Russian mob, and I thought it was really interesting to see him just, learn the ways of the Brodva. The fact that he has to it's kind of like when he was part of the League of Assassins, when he had to, strip his name and forget all his family, things like that. Well, that's what they tell him to do. They tell him, look, forget your family, forget everything. They even tell him that his mother and sister are dead, and I think it's really showing why Oliver was so fucked up in the head in the first season. I mean, it's the Brodva that really did this to him, and you're definitely seeing this here. The way he kind of has to strip any sort of connection he has with anyone just so he can be part of this Brodva, I found very fascinating, and it really did get us into some really juicy stuff with the Brodva. I'm really loving where the flashbacks are going. I'm still in this episode, they're still going strong. So Artemis and Ragman find where Church was holding Wild Dog, but they've already moved him to another location. However, Felicity used her computer magic to find Church's next probable location, but she promised she would only tell Oliver. She doesn't really know if she wants to tell them. So sure enough, Oliver then finds Church, forcing Wild Dog to dig his own grave, and the way that he is just getting into his head and I mean, you can see he really is breaking Wild Dog here. Like, Wild Dog's convinced that he's gonna die. He really is. And Oliver rescues Wild Dog, but Church does get away. And I thought it was interesting the way he rescued Wild Dog or Renee so quickly. And afterwards, Church admits that he cracked and told Church that Green Arrow was actually really Oliver Queen. And this changes everything. I mean, now he knows. And I like that we're not really kept in suspense with that. I mean, it seems like every season, oh my god, he's the Green Arrow. Not really that shocking anymore. It's really not. And I like the Church found out. We also learned that Church is actually planning a major drug consultation, but he's also trying to, Green Arrow, you know, we see motive, you know, why he's going after. So back at the Arrow Cave, Oliver sends his team to protect various members of his friends and family because now the Church knows that Green Arrow and Oliver are the same person. This really worries Oliver. I mean, he's worried that someone's going to come after Laura. I mean, again, this is the reason why Laura was killed, and him being a lot more aware of that, I think, is one of the reasons why Oliver is just a lot more resourceful this season. Not that he wasn't last season, he's just not taking any chances. You know, he's doing whatever he can to guard his family. He's making sure that he's okay. I mean, he is as, you know, as focused on that as ever, and I think that's really one of the things that's really driving the season very well. And Oliver then asks Diggle to debrief Wild Dog and get more details on Church's plans, which this is the perfect way to make use of Diggle. And I like that, again, there isn't that big reunion episode where everyone's come back together in Team Arrow, because that's just not the way things are going. You know, Diggle's a part of Team Arrow, but he's really just there, like I said, to mentor. And Diggle also suggests an ally to help turn the tide on Church and says he'll be there in 24 hours because clearly they can't take Church alone. I mean, now the Church knows who Oliver is, this is not going to work as just Oliver taking him on alone, which Oliver wants to do, but he needs someone. So the next day, Oliver meets with a councilman, a reporter about his new zoning plans, and the Susan Williams thing, her name was, she was there. However, the councilman says he's not budging because the Queen family previously used loose zoning to build their skyscraper, and this is something that we've always known, that the Queen family was very spoiled and very greedy and rich, and he's just not willing to adhere to them because of the fact of stuff they've done in the past, which perfectly makes sense. And the way that Oliver's past is still getting to him, I really did like seeing. But we see Felicity's new boyfriend, who is still whatever to me. I'm just not really into Detective Malone, I guess his name is, after an afternoon hookup, that she got a promotion, that he actually got a promotion to the anti-crime unit. And Felicity lies, says that Oliver knows who he is, and this obviously scares Felicity, knowing that the anti-crime unit is, you know, right now in danger, and that people are getting shot, and all this stuff is going on. I mean, this is a really bad situation, and I don't want to see Detective Malone killed, mainly because I don't want to see Felicity and Oliver happen again. I'm worried that that's what they're going to do. I don't want to see them do that, but Detective Malone is a character. It's just kind of boring to me. They're not really doing much with him to make him that interesting. He's really the only flaw I have with this season, honestly. Other than that, though, I don't really have much of a problem. He's just kind of whatever to me. He's not a bad character. He's just very bland. But Diggle then tries to talk Wild Dog through remembering something that could help the team fight Church. But Wild Dog feels like he's in therapy. He doesn't want to be in therapy. You know, he's upset that he's been benched and says he can't remember anything, really. He can't give him any sort of information. And it's, like I said, their scenes are very compelling because they're going through a very similar situation. You know, Diggle isn't really with Oliver, and Wild Dog feels like he's betrayed Oliver. And the way that these two bond, I really do like seeing, and really did add to a lot of this episode. But then we see something that I've been much looking forward to seeing ever since episode 2. Church meets up with Prometheus, who Prometheus becomes a lot more into the forefront of the season. This is reminding me a lot of Luke Cage, the way that this was going. I'll talk about why at the end of this review, but he tells him to back off of Green Arrow, but Church came prepared and brought his own freak to the meeting, who takes an arrow meant for Church without a shrug, and after Prometheus gives him another warning, Church tells the assassin that they're actually not killing Green Arrow, they're going to kill the mayor. They're going to kill Oliver Queen, because if they kill Oliver Queen, then they've killed the Green Arrow, and then that will be done. But, you know, Prometheus wants to be the one to take the shot at him, you definitely see. So I like that we see the Church is in fact doing things for Prometheus's benefit, and that none of this really is his idea. This is all Prometheus getting into his ear, telling him what to do. And Thea then asks Oliver why Oliver has a meeting scheduled with Susan Williams, who we know is the reporter from earlier, and also the one that really did not really take a liking to him, and we know they can't really trust, but Oliver thinks it's the best way to win her over, which I like. I like that he is willing to, you know, listen to her, because she is a reporter, and he asked Susan to give him 1 month to win her over before publishing any more attack articles about his administration, and she actually agrees, and I think it's a very reasonable agreement. I mean, you know, she doesn't know much about him. He has a bad reputation, but he could be a lot better, and I definitely do agree. I think that's the best thing to do, is to give him a month, and I like that things seem to be going well there. And Oliver, honestly, even in these scenes, is such a badass. He really is. I mean, he's back to that badass persona. He's no longer that, oh, I don't kill, I don't do this. Like, he's no longer lazy. I think he's been kind of lazy the past few seasons, and he's a lot more resourceful and just a lot more focused, and you definitely see that. So, back in Russia, one of the Broadvilliers warns Oliver that he'll never be a true member of the Brodva, and that Oliver knows what the Brodva does to outsiders. That the only reason that he's, you know, isn't really a member of the Brodva, because, you know, he pulled him in and everything. Just interesting stuff there. I like the way that went overall. Definitely, interesting, you know, with the Brodva. Again, I like the way that's going. But Diggle then tells Wild Dog about his torture from last season. We remember how tough that was when his brother Andy tortured him on behalf of Dark, and Wild Dog admits that he keeps screwing up his life. And I really like the scene with Wild Dog, because up till now, Wild Dog to me just seemed like a rebel. That's all he was. He was a rebel. He was there to cause problems, and I like that he actually is upset about it. He's screwing up, and he tells Diggle that he doesn't want to revisit his latest and greatest mistake. He wants to move forward, but Diggle convinced him that he needs to remember to help Team Arrow. That's the best thing to do. They need him, you know, to find information about Church, because they knew 0 to nothing about this guy. I mean, that's the thing. That's the reason why they're completely outnumbered, because they know absolutely nothing about Church. All they know is that he's coming for the Green Arrow, and that he's been their target. They know 0 to nothing about him, and they want to know, you know, what Wild Dog remembers. So he's still not budging, we see. So Oliver and Thea then call out the councilman from earlier. This scene was awesome. I love this. They call him out for trying to hide his true agenda. He's got holdings in the area that Oliver wants to redevelop, and blackmails him. And it seems like everything's gone well, but as they leave City Hall, Church's assassins take out Oliver's bodyguard, shoots him multiple times in the chest before fleeing, and such a well-done scene, because that honestly could have been a cliffhanger for Season 5. I feel like if this was a lesser season, they would have done that, but no, this is, you know, this was during a commercial break, and I'm glad that they did that, because it would have been kind of a dumb cliffhanger, but it definitely felt like it could have been. So Lance announces that Oliver has passed away. In a press conference, as Oliver and Team Arrow look on, the dead Oliver walks into Arrow Cave and basically essentially faked his death, is what he's trying to do. He takes off a rubber mask, he introduces himself as Christopher Chance, the human target, and it turns out the assassination was actually staged to give Oliver more time to take down Church. That was the best thing, that they actually staged it, that he knew that he was going to be killed, so he had someone take him out, so it looked like, you know, that he had more time to take down Church, and if Church thinks that he's dead, then he definitely has more time to do that. So Christopher Chance we don't know much about, but we do get more into his character. Back in Russia, Oliver tells Anatoly that he's moping over a woman, presumably Laurel, which, you know, at this time these two were dating. So Anatoly tells Oliver to call her, and afterwards, Oliver sees a woman getting harassed by some other Brodva members and leaves after them to get some air, we see. So Oliver then thanks Chance for posing as him for the day. Chance tells Oliver that Oliver has a great life and that Oliver should call Susan, and casually mentions that Felicity's moved on with her life, so he should too. This is something that Oliver really hasn't talked much about. You know, we've heard about Oliver and Felicity's relationship, but he hasn't really thought, oh, I need to move on. And I like that Chance is telling him, dude, you need to move on. I mean, yeah, this was something in the past, and yeah, it's sad what happened and everything, but you need to move on. And I mean, yeah, he does. So I really like seeing that. Diggle then gets Wild Dog to remember his time at Church's headquarters, which causes Wild Dog to realize that he actually knows what Church's plan is. He finally admits it, and I like the way that Diggle was able to calm him down, because again, they're going through very similar circumstances. So Oliver confronts Felicity about her new boyfriend, admits that he was hurt, she didn't tell him, and Felicity says that she doesn't know whether things with her new boyfriend is serious. Because to me, it just seems like a booty call. I will definitely say that. It seems like a very sexual relationship, but their talk gets cut off from a text from Diggle. Wild's Dog Intel gives them a time and place for Church's big play to consolidate Star City's drug trade. Wild Dog initially wants to sit out the fight, but Diggle convinced him to suit up. And I like that Diggle didn't make him sit out. I like that he's telling him, no, you have the information, you go, you do this on your own. I like seeing that. Well, not on your own, but go fight him I like seeing that. So Church then meets with the other drug lords before Team Arrow shows up. While Mr. Terrific and Artemis fight the assassin, Wild Dog goes after Church for a second time. Church gets away from Wild Dog, but Green Arrow catches up to the drug lord in a hangar, and he brings him down. Church then warns Oliver about Prometheus before Green Arrow knocks him out, and now Oliver has information about him. So you definitely get the sense that Church knows more what's going on, and also the human target gets the upper hand on the assassin by posing as one of Church's goons, and then shooting him. Just a really cool scene overall. I love the way that was done. Really awesome action. That's something that this season is just doing really well. Really good action so far. Really loving it. So the next morning, Oliver reveals that he was actually still alive and says that faking his death led to the police taking down major drug operations in several cities. Afterwards, Oliver thanks Human Target for his help. He then tells Felicity that they both need to move on, and it's really obvious that there's still sparks between the two. You can definitely tell. I mean, definitely there's something going on there, which I hope these two don't get back together. I think they can't really be together right now. Maybe later in the series, just not now. Now's not the time. Back in Russia, Oliver confronts the two Brodva members, but it turns out it was actually an assassination attempt. Luckily, the Brodva leaders, the one who wanted Oliver dead earlier, they show up, they kill his two thugs, then walks away before pulling off his face and revealing himself to be the Human Target, which is how these two know each other before. And knowing this is not the first time that the Human Target posed as Oliver, I thought was really cool to see. So Anatoly comes out, says that he knew the other mobster wanted him dead, and that was his way of taking care of it. By the way, I forgot to say, Human Target was actually played by Will Travel, who, played Will on Jessica Jones. Not a huge fan of the character, but it was cool to see him because he's a really good actor, and I like what we saw of him here, so I hope we see more of him because he was really good. But then we get a very interesting scene. Susan meets up with a federal agent who gives her a photo of Oliver in Russia when he was supposed to be on an island. So this is really cool. I really like this overall. Because everyone's saying, oh, the flashbacks are very hollow, they are not really relevant. This makes them relevant. I love this. I love the way that Susan is digging up intel on Oliver. I love the way that she's realizing what's happening with him in Russia. They said there was going to be a very interesting connection between the two, and the way they actually have thought about it and are actually connecting the two together, I think is really cool, and it's kind of a way we haven't really seen the show do before. The last time they really did that was with Oliver and Slade, and they're kind of doing that here, and I definitely really do love the way they're doing that. When the show connects the flashbacks to what's actually going on, I love it. I love it when the show does that. I've said it many times, but I'm going to reiterate again. I love it when the show does that. But then we get to the ending, which the ending of this episode I absolutely love. Like I said, very much reminded me of Luke Cage. Church is now in prison. He's going to prison at least. Prometheus arrives. He takes down the entire envoy, and you're thinking, okay, he's going to free Church, and he's going to try to, convince Church to do something. But Church tells Prometheus that Oliver is the Green Arrow, and tells him that, look, I have the Green Arrow. I can do what you need for me. I can be of use to you. But Prometheus just murders him. At the end of the episode, Church is dead, Prometheus has the upper hand, and that's the end of Church, it seems. And I was shocked to see this, but yeah, Church is dead, Prometheus is now going to be our main villain, and that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall, guys. Let's just get in this episode, because I definitely do have stuff to say about it. So, let's just talk about this. Like I said, to me, this very much felt like Luke Cage. The way the spoiler if you haven't seen Luke Cage, which I am going to continue watching that show, actually. I'm going to probably finish the season this week, because I want to finish it before The Crown comes out on Friday. I definitely want to finish it. Spoiler if you haven't seen Luke Cage, as you know, Cottonmouth started off as a villain, and then it turned into, I believe, Diamondback is now the new villain. That very much reminds me of this. The difference is we didn't see Diamondback, we only heard about him, but Church and Prometheus were very much like that. Church seemed like he was going to be our big villain, but no, now it's Prometheus, and I'm worried that Prometheus isn't really going to be as good as a villain. I mean, we don't know much about him. He seems like he has a personal vendetta against the Green Arrow. We just don't really know what that is, but I do like where he's he's headed, where he's killing everyone, things like that. He actually is straight up killing them. I like that. I just hope we don't get into Ra's al Ghul territory, because that really pissed me off in season 3, what they end up doing with him, but we'll have to see. Definitely that's going to be interesting. I don't like repeated storylines, but Prometheus in general, Oliver now knows about him, so definitely there's going to be some sort of confrontation between these two. I don't really know where this is going to go, but how long does Prometheus know about Oliver, and who the hell is Prometheus? We don't really know. I don't think Prometheus is really his name, and I like that it's a human. I like that it's not some creature. It is a real person, and I like the way it's going. That definitely is interesting. This whole thing with Susan, I think, is so fascinating. The way that they are tying this into the flashbacks, the way they haven't really done it before, I'm all for it. You know, she definitely has beef on Oliver. She wants to know what happened with him in Russia, and the more that we find out, definitely this is going to really tie into what's going on in the flashbacks. Definitely that's going to be very interesting. That's why, but that's also reasons why people like Amanda Waller aren't around, because that gives her less convenience to find out what happened. If she bumped into Amanda Waller, then she might know. It definitely makes me wonder if Anatoly is going to actually come back in the present. I definitely could see that happening, but we'll have to see. I have a feeling he's going to, but we'll have to see. Are we going to see the human target again? I hope so. I definitely really like we saw the human target. It very much reminded me of Constantine last year. Remember how we saw Constantine episode 5 of season 4, and we see another ally of Oliver's past in this season. I thought it was cool the way they did that, and I really like what we saw of him. I just hope we see more of him in you know, the rest of the season, because I really like what we got with him here. He was definitely really good. So really good stuff with the human target. I'm really hoping that Felicity and Detective Malone do start something, because I just don't want Oliver and Felicity back together right now. I think it's just too much drama. I like where we are right now with them being just friends, and I think they're just better as friends. I think it became very much of Felicity wearing the pants and Oliver being a pussy, and I just don't want any of that. I feel like the season is better than that, and I don't want to see Oliver, you know, just giving to Felicity constantly. It's just not really a fun show to watch. I did really like the fight, though, between Wild Dog and Church. I thought that was really cool, and the way that Diggle actually motivated Wild Dog, I really did like seeing. I'm hoping now we know a lot about Wild Dog, we'll get more into Artemis and into, well, we know more about Rory, but Artemis especially, we know zero to nothing about that character. I don't think the characters had much dialogue either. She's just kind of there. So I want to definitely get in more into Artemis. I'm sure we will, but I like that we definitely got more into Wild Dog overall. I thought he definitely was a very interesting character where we're headed with him. I really like what we got with him here. Overall, guys, really great episode. I really do love pretty much not everything about the season. I don't like Detective Malone, but I love everything else going on. I think everything was really well done this episode. It also makes me wonder if Oliver's going to move on. You know, he needs to remember what, you know, what Chance actually said to him, because it is true. He does need to move on. You know, Felicity and him broke up. He needs to move on. But that's my review. Hope you are enjoying it. I want you guys saw this episode overall. Loved your thoughts on it. I really did love this episode. And we'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for tonight's episode of American Horror Story Roanoke, which I am definitely looking forward to. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.